Hello and good afternoon to all of you. I hope all of you are doing well. So, in today's class, we will be discussing some of the important characteristics of big data. Now, big data, as we learned in the previous class, is a kind of data that is too large or too complex for the traditional database management system or data processing software system to handle. So, in order to efficiently and effectively manage big data, it is very important for us to develop complex computational algorithms that are cost effective and abides by the various characteristics of big data. So let's try to go through some of the notable characteristics of big data. So the first characteristic is called as velocity. Now, velocity basically refers to the rate at which the information is being generated. For example, since time we have been using social media applications. Social media applications like Facebook, Twitter, Orkut, and High Five. Now, these social media application enables us to post opinion, to react to someone else's opinion, or to comment on someone else's opinion. Right? It allows us to advertise our products. So there are various operations that you can perform using social media applications. So when you talk about such kind of social media applications being used by n number of users, it implies tremendous amount of information is being generated per unit time. Now that is called as velocity. So velocity basically refers to the amount of information that is generated per unit time. Now volume. Now volume basically refers to the quantity of the information that is being generated. For an example, if you use shopping marts like Amazon, Flipkart, and Myntra, every time you log in, it is capable of keeping track of the past browsing history of a user, right? So next time when you log in, it's capable of listing all the items that you have browsed. In connection to that, it's also capable of listing the items that may be related to the items that you have browsed. So in line, what they are doing is they are not only enabling the customer to make quality decision, but they are also ensuring that profitability of the organization is enhanced, which implies they store tremendous volume of data. So every action that you perform and every transaction that you perform is translated into data and stored in the data storage. So that basically confers to volume. Now variety, again, if you come back to social networking sites, using social networking applications, what you can do is you can upload text, you can upload image, you can upload speech, you can upload video. So you see there are different data of different formats that you can work with using these social media application, which implies here we are working with data that is of diverse type, right? So in context of big data, we are working with very high speed in which the data is being generated. We are working with tremendous volume of data and we are working with tremendous variety of data. So here we have a very simple diagrammatic representation that shows the three characteristics, which are variety, velocity, and volume. So in case of variety, we have made a transition from structured data to semi-structured or unstructured data. In context to velocity, we have moved from batch processing to stream data processing, right? Okay? And then in context to volume, we have moved from terabyte to zettabyte because tremendous amount of data is being generated. So these are the three fundamental attributes that characterizes big data. Now let us try to understand how big data differentiates itself from traditional data sources. Now there are different ways in which big data can be differentiated from traditional data sources. So let us try to go in sequence. The first one is big data can be entirely new sources of data. Now, this is very true. Now, if you consider a traditional shopping mart, and if you consider a most evolved shopping mart like Amazon, both are capable of enabling the customer in performing transaction. That is, both are capable of enabling customer in buying items of interest. But the evolved shopping marts like Amazon, in addition to enabling customer to buy an item, it is also capable of assisting them in buying or selecting potential item that they may buy. That means it is capable of mining the opinion of the customer, and it's capable of drawing conclusions regarding the potential items that may be bought by the customer based on their past action or browsing history. So each and every transaction and each and every action that is performed by the customer using the applications are being transformed into data which can be used in order to draw certain conclusion. So here what we have is we have new data sources in case of big data. So it's not only the item data that is related to the items, but it's the data that is related to the customer that is used in order to make certain quality decision. So that is one of the major difference between big data and the traditional data sources. So big data can be entirely new source of data. Now, the second important aspect is the speed at which the data is being generated. So traditionally, every house used to have a power meter that was whose reading was taken at the end of the month, and the reading is translated into a revenue, and the revenue bill for that particular revenue is generated. So we used to have power meters at our home that was capable of keeping track of the power consumption, and those readings were translated into bill, and revenue was collected for the same. But now what we have is we have devices or sensors that are capable of giving us our power reading on day-to-day basis. So here, instead of having one value as a reading for power consumption, we have multiple values as a reading for power consumption. Now, what does it aid in? It not only aids in determining the amount of revenue that we need to pay, but it also aids us in planning the way how we move about consuming power, right? So what would be our future course of action for conserving power, right? So if we have multiple data points instead of a single data point, what we can do is we can analyze the data points, and then we can draw a conclusion about how to move ahead in the future. So that is one of the biggest advantage of big data. So here what we have is we have multiple instances of data being kept track of that can be analyzed, and meaningful conclusions can be drawn from it. Now, the third important aspect is the divergence towards semi-structured and unstructured data from structured data. Now, the traditional database management system or traditional data processing application has had its reliance on structured data. That means it depended on structured data more in order to perform certain business. By structured data, here what we mean is we mean data for which we have a format associated for storage, for operation, right, and for derivation. But now what we have is we have data which are of diverse format. So if you consider a social networking site, the data that may be presented in social network site may be of diverse format. It may be an image, it may be a video, it may be a text, it may be a reaction, it may be, so there might be different ways in which data may be presented in case of social network. So here what we cannot do is we cannot stick with a single format of data. So there is a transition from structured data to semi-structured and unstructured data. So big data tries to focus on or address to the need of having data in different formats and addressing to its concern. Now, the next important factor that is if when we talk about unstructured data, right? So what are the qualities of the unstructured data? So unstructured data are those data that you have little or no control over, right? So for example, the way how the users will be placing data in the social media. So we do not have control over it. But what we have to do is anyhow we have to regulate it. Anyhow we have to regulate the way how opinions are being expressed in different ways by the users of the social media applications, right? So for example, text, video, audio, these are all unstructured data. So these unstructured data are very messy to work with because you have to have data specific operations being developed. But anyhow, what we need to do is we need to regulate it. So so here now what we need to have is we need to have a computational process which is able to work with data of different format. So it should be so complex enough, but yet cost effective that is capable of working with data of different format. Now, so as I've said, because there is a transition or there's a paradigm shift from structured data to unstructured or semi-structured data. So what we need to have is we need to have computational processes that are capable of working with data of such format. So these are some of the basic distinctions that are there between big data and the traditional data sources, right? Now let us try to go back to the three V's of big data, that is volume, velocity, and variety. So volume, it basically refers to large amount of data from data set with size of terabyte to zettabyte. Velocity, large amount of data from transaction with high refresh rate, resulting in data stream coming at greater speed. So the amount of data generated per unit time, and the time to act on it, right? So this is also very much important because as the data is generated, what we need to do is we need to have computational processes that are capable of using the data and it's capable of generating certain meaningful inferences. So the time by which the computational processes are capable of acting and deriving conclusions are very short in case of big data because the velocity is very high. So that's what we have said. So there is a paradigm shift from batch processing to real-time streaming or real-time data processing, right? The third one is variety. So different data may come from different data sources, right? So it may be of type image, or it may be of type text, or it may be of type table, it may be of type video, it may be of type audio. So there might be different types of data that may be there placed in an application that an application is expected to process, right? Again. So, more importantly, so data comes in various formats such as transaction log data from various applications, structured data as database tables, semi-structured data as XML, unstructured data as text, image, videos, audio, and many more. So, you see, these basically confers to variety, right? So, these are the three important V's of big data that needs to be taken care of whenever we are developing applications that are capable of handling big data. Now let us try to elaborate the characteristics of big data. So here now what we have is we have 8 V's of big data. First one is called as volume, second one is called as value, third one is called as veracity, fourth one is called as visualization, fifth one is called as variety, sixth one is called as velocity, seventh one is called as viscosity, and eighth one is called as virality. So these are important characteristics of big data. So these are called as 8 V's of big data. So first one is called as volume. So volume, as we have already said, there is tremendous amount of data that is being generated So these data are to be maintained, these are to be analyzed, and some meaningful conclusions are to be drawn from it, right? Okay. So volume basically refers to the amount of data that is being generated. Value. So whenever you talk about volume, so can you find the information that you're hunting for? Right. So whenever you talk about volume, so it basically tries to address to the question that can you find the information that you're hunting for, right? Value, can you find it when you most need it, because this is also very much important. So for an example, if you require a volume of information today for making certain quality decision, and if it could not be derived, but at a later point in time if you could derive that particular volume of information, but at that point in time it's not relevant at all. So it's very much important for one to be able to derive the amount of information that is required at a given point in time or at an expected point in time. So that is very much important, and that is what value tries to refer to. So value basically implies can you find it when you most need it. Veracity basically implies are you dealing with the information or disinformation. So this is also very much important because volume only does not matter, the integrity of the volume also matters. The information content of the volume also matters. So this is what is veracity capable of inferring to. So are you dealing with information or disinformation? Visualization. Can you make sense and trigger a decision? So by having a data represented in a given format, whether you can use that particular data and make sense and trigger a decision or help someone in making decision. Variety, is it worth? Velocity, is the information capable of gaining momentum or it provides opportunity in the real time. So this is very much important, right? Viscosity, so does the information stick, right? Virality, does it convey the message and can be placed in the presentation? So just see, these are the important 8 V's that are there. So volume basically refers to whether the information that you have confers to the information that you actually need. Value, can you find when you need it the most, right? Veracity, are you dealing with the correct information or whether you're dealing with wrong information? Visualization, whether the form of data that you have is actually capable of making sense and triggering action. Variety, is it really worth? Velocity, the amount of information that is being generated, right? Is the information gaining momentum? And do opportunity evolve at real time? Viscosity, what is the integrity of the information that is being generated? Does the information stick? Does it hold true? Right? And virality, does it convey the message and can be placed in the presentation, right? So these are the important V's that are there associated with big data that you need to remember, right? So again, I'll repeat it. So it's volume, value, veracity, visualization, variety, velocity, viscosity, and virality. Now let us try to understand the value of big data for business. So big data can be used in order to assist in all possible aspects of the business, right? Okay, so big data benefits business because it helps to quickly uncover the causes behind issue, defects, and failures. So this is one of the important characteristics of big data. So it tries to it helps us in uncovering or drawing the causes behind the issues, the defects, and the failure. Because here we have tremendous amount of data that can be potentially analyzed, and the conclusions can be drawn regarding the issues, defects, and failures. It helps in determining patterns or trends in the data. So this is also very true. So by mining data, that is by mining big data, what we can draw is we can draw the way how the data items are related, and then quality decisions can be made regarding the data items. So this is one of the critical evaluation that is done in context to retail stores where decisions where they draw decisions on how the items are to be placed in the retail store in order to maximize their sale, right? So it helps in identifying various patterns that are there in the data. It helps in estimating, identifying risks. It helps in estimating the influence of the risk. It helps in planning for the risk, right? Okay, that implies it rapidly recalculates entire risk portfolio. So it helps in identifying risk. It helps in determining the damage causing potential of the risk, and then eventually it also helps us in identifying mitigation plans that may be initiated in order to contain the influence of the risk, right? The next important assistance that big data provides is it helps in identifying fraudulent or malicious attacks, attacks, right? Again, before its worst consequences can be felt or occurs. So this is one of the important advantages of big data. So by analyzing the trends of cyber attack, what we can do is we can forecast the way how the attackers will behave with respect to time, and necessary actions may be initiated. It provides you information about the entire data, and it also helps us in deciding upon the analytic strategies, right? So these are some of the important reasons why big data is used or is considered beneficial for business. So it helps in discovering the causes for various issues, defects, and failures. It helps in determining patterns or trends in the data that can be used for benefit of the business. It helps in recalculating the entire risk portfolio by helping us in identifying risk, identifying the damage causing potential of the risk, and giving a hint about what may be the mitigation steps that may be initiated. It helps in identifying fraudulent and malicious cyber attacks, right? It helps in identifying the trends of the attacks, and it also helps us in identifying what would be the mitigation step that may be initiated, right? It provides us information about the entire data, right? And it also helps us in deciding about various analytical strategies that may be pursued in order to work with big data in order to draw certain meaningful conclusions. So in this particular class, what we have learned about is we have learned about the big data characteristics. We have focused on the importance of variety, velocity, and volume. Then we have talked about what are the ways in which distinction can be made between big data and traditional data sources. We have learned about the three V's in detail, that is velocity, variety, and volume. Then we talked about the eight V's of big data, which are volume, value, veracity, visualization, variety, velocity, viscosity, and virality, and its significance in association with big data. Then we talked about the way how big data will assist in performing business. So, what are the benefits that big data brings into the business? Where we've learned that it helps us in uncovering various issues, defects, and failures. It helps in determining patterns or trends in the data. It helps in recalculating the entire risk portfolio. It helps in identifying fraudulent or malicious attacks. It helps us with information about the entire data and analytical strategies that may be pursued in order to draw certain meaningful conclusions from the data. So in next class we'll continue with the with big data. So thank you very much. Have a very nice day.